The southern wind sings again another lullaby.
And we are back. You can jump right in. As you are listening to Captain Controversy in the Revolution, where revolution is in the air, and I'm feeling rusty, as I'm by myself and I haven't done a show in a while. See, the way I do my show, it relies on conversation, otherwise I have to keep jumping from topic to topic. But, so to sum up, I'm happy with the Supreme Court's ruling, and anyone who has a problem with it needs to get their priorities straight. Because if you're going to spend your life worrying about who marries who, as far as consenting adults go, then I feel like there's no reasoning with you. There's no reasoning with your kind. I can't respect that view. I can't respect a view that infringes on the rights of others when those people aren't harming anyone. It does not hurt society simply because they don't practice the same beliefs as you. Doesn't matter. And there is a big-time petition with over 100,000 signatures, including mine, to pardon Edward Snowden on whitehouse.gov. And while it might not make a difference, it at least sends a message. And I would encourage anyone who listens to my show to go to whitehouse.gov and sign that petition. You will need to create an account on there, but what's it matter? They're already surveying your activity as it is. Won't make a difference whether or not you have an account there. Now, that is all good news. And this weekend, I'm going to elaborate more on some big stories. I'm going to talk Aaron Hernandez with Justin. Try to have a good, intelligent conversation about that. Maybe we bring up Doma and see what he thinks about my end marriage licenses theory. But, honestly, there is something much more serious going on right now on the other side of the world. An absolute icon. A man who deserves all the accolades and nothing but respect, is on life support. I, of course, am talking about Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela is now on life support at the age of 94. He's outside of a hospital in South Africa. This all according to a local Fox station in Kansas City. Source doesn't really matter. There's a lot of sources talking about this, but there are South Africans right now with lit candles outside of the hospital where Nelson Mandela is lying in critical condition on life support. He's been in the hospital since June 8th over a recurring lung infection. It's been described as critical since Sunday. And according to South Africa current President Jacob Zuma, Mandela's condition has not changed. Now, South African government spokesman, one of their spokesmen, has told CNN that officials are unable to comment on reports that Mandela was on life support due to doctor-patient confidentiality rules. Fair enough. And the government has said that Mandela's doctors continue to do their best to ensure his recovery, well-being, and comfort. But, fact of the matter is, it seems like he's on his way out of this world. I mean, he's 94 years old. He spent 27 years in prison for fighting against apartheid, which was South Africa's laws and system about racial segregation. 4 years after being released from prison, he became the nation's first black president in 1994, a country whose majority race was black. Now, normally, I'm not into talking about differentiating races, but the fact of the matter is, in South Africa, you can't talk about the history of South Africa and the impact of Nelson Mandela without acknowledging the difference in race. Now, he was elected in a fully representative multiracial election, and his government was focused on getting rid of the legacy of apartheid. They wanted to get rid of institutionalized racism, poverty, and inequality, and he was known as an African nationalist and a democratic socialist. But when I think of him as an advocate for human rights and peace. He also has a charitable foundation, the Nelson Mandela Foundation, which goes after poverty and HIV/AIDS. He also won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Now, he's also won the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom. Now, in the past, there had been right-wing critics who denounced him as a terrorist and a communist sympathizer. I can't even begin to comprehend the stupidity of anyone who will say that. I don't even want to acknowledge it. But, essentially, he did win the Nobel Peace Prize, an award that used to mean something. With our president having won the Nobel Peace Prize, it goes to show that that award no longer means what it used to. You know, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela used to be winners of the Nobel, would win those prizes, but now you've got a president who, authorizes drone strikes on innocent civilians in the Middle East, and he has a Nobel Peace Prize. So, but that's not what this is about. He was a champion of human rights. He was willing to fight for it to the point where he spent 27 years in prison as a political prisoner, as he was in trouble for the fight against apartheid. He was originally, and he was into nonviolent resistance, just like Gandhi. Now, he once addressed a crowd of 10,000, initiating the campaign protests, and that got him arrested and briefly interned in Marshall Square Prison. Later on, he would organize protests that made it go all the way from the 10,000 people in a crowd to 100,000, where massive arrests were made. The Public Safety Act of 1953 permitted martial law to resist these. And he was also tried for treason. I mean, technically he was guilty of it because he was fighting the apartheid regime. It was just, though, because he was fighting to get rights that he should have been born with. And he wasn't perfect. No one's perfect. He had a marriage that got ruined during all these protests, where his ex claimed that he had physically abused her. Now, she eventually withdrew that claim. I can't see him abusing anybody. Now, eventually he was imprisoned, big time. In 1962, he was charged with inciting workers' strikes, leaving the country without permission. See, he wasn't even free to travel. And, they basically arrested him because he was a threat to their apartheid regime. So, he eventually came out. When he finally got out of prison, though he was old, he came out and decided to make a difference. And for that, anyone in the world who believes in freedom and equality for all and peace should be forever grateful for the impact that he made, not only on South Africa, but the rest of this world. See, we still, even in what's supposed to be the freest country in the world, we still have our problems. I mean, look at the controversy over the Trayvon Martin case that happened last year. You had a man in George Zimmerman who considered Trayvon Martin to be suspicious simply because he was an unidentified black man wearing a hoodie walking through the neighborhood. Maybe he wasn't a perfect kid, but he wasn't causing any trouble at that moment. And Zimmerman had a screw loose. But that became a race issue. We still see him all the time. People playing the race card. This man was fighting for the rights of his race because they were being oppressed in his country. And when he got elected president, he didn't reverse it. He didn't go get revenge on the white minority. He could have easily done that. I mean, white people were, in fact, the minority of the population. Him and the black majority could have easily gotten revenge and targeted the white people. But he wasn't interested in that. He wasn't looking for revenge. He was just looking for peace and equality. And now, as residents of South Africa cry, just hoping to keep him around as long as possible, I just don't see it happening. He's on life support. Let him rest. He has done more in his lifetime than most can even dream of. And as far as I'm concerned, he is one of those people who, one of the few people alive on this planet right now, who you can look at and say that he is almost a saint, essentially. He could be defined as a saint. A godsend, if you believe in that. A true hero for all people. And if you have a problem with him, you gotta look in the mirror and re-examine yourself. So, may you go on, and if there is an afterlife, may you find eternal salvation. May you rest in peace. Uje